Hi, friends. Welcome back to Stay Anchored Kids. Last time, we learned about God's amazing promise to Abram. God told Abram that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. But today, we're going to learn what happened when Abram and Sarai got tired of waiting. Have you ever had to wait for something? Maybe it was a birthday, maybe a vacation, maybe Christmas morning. Waiting can be hard. And sometimes when we wait a long time, we start looking for shortcuts. Well, that's exactly what happened to Abram and Sarai. Years had passed since God made his promise. Yet they still did not have a child. Sarai began thinking, maybe we need to help God make his promise happen. So she came up with her own plan. She told Abram to have a child through her servant Hagar. Now this was not God's plan. But Abram listened. Soon Hagar became pregnant. Instead of solving the problem, however, the situation created even more problems. Feelings were hurt. Relationships became strained. People became angry and frustrated. What started as an attempt to help God ended up creating pain for everyone involved. Now, this story teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes we believe God has forgotten us. Sometimes we think his timing is too slow. And sometimes we try to force things to happen ourselves instead of waiting on him. But God's plans do not need our shortcuts. God's timing is always better than our timing. Now, even though Abram and Sarai made mistakes, God did not abandon them. God came to Abram again and reminded him of his promise. In fact, God changed their names. Abram became Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. These new names were reminders that God still intended to fulfill his promise. Can you imagine hearing that? Years had gone by. Nothing seemed to be happening. Yet God was still saying, I have not forgotten. Now here's today's big question. What should we do when God's timing feels slow? The answer is trust him. That sounds simple, but it can be difficult. When we don't see immediate answers, we often assume nothing is happening. But God is always at work. Think about planting a seed. When a seed is buried in the ground, you don't see anything happening at first. But beneath the surface, growth is already taking place. In the same way, God is often working in ways we cannot see. And just because we can't see it, doesn't mean he has forgotten us. Now, some people think the heroes in the Bible were perfect, but they weren't. Abraham made mistakes. Sarah made mistakes. That's actually encouraging because it reminds us that God works through imperfect people. The Bible is not a story about perfect humans. It's a story about a perfect God who remains faithful even when people fail. And that's good news for all of us because we all make mistakes. Yet God continues to love us and guide us. Before we finish today, remember this truth. God promises don't depend on our perfection. They depend on His faithfulness. All right, friends, thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, we're going to learn about the miraculous birth of Isaac and how God finally fulfilled the promise He made to Abraham and Sarah. Before you go, here's today's challenge. Think about this question or ask your parents. Have you ever gotten impatient waiting for something? What happened? And let's finish with a quick prayer. God, help us trust your timing even when waiting is difficult. Thank you for being faithful when we make mistakes. Help us remember that your plans are always better than our own. Amen. See you next time, friends.